The Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
Welcome to Utah's longest-running sports podcast. This is Dog and Deuce. Every week, we take a deep dive into the Utah Jazz, the Utes, Cougars, Aggies, and everything in between. Phil Steele makes his annual visit to the show to preview the upcoming seasons for all the local college football teams. Plus, Joe Ingles let us all down. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming up on Dog and Deuce number 376.
From Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com.
Thank you for this episode 376 of the Dog and Deuce Show. If you want to know more, and I sure hope you do, follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
You can watch this show all weekend long on K-Patter TV, or if you're in southern Utah, you can watch it on Backcountry TV. As always, you can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would love to hear from you, so send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
This is episode 376 of Dog and Deuce. Super happy to welcome back Phil Steele to the show. He's been joining us. What is this, the 8th year in a row, I want to say?
A lot. I'd have to look at my magazine
close.
count, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's close to that. And as always, he comes in, he drops so much knowledge. And the only downside is I don't feel like we have enough time to really dig into all the information he has. And it feels like we kind of breeze through these teams. But overall, he gives a great impression of what you can expect from all three college football teams. So let's just go ahead and jump into that. It's Phil Steele on Dog and Deuce. Well, we are going to switch gears here. We have been talking nonstop basketball since about May, I want to say. And that's why we're very happy to welcome in our guest, Phil Steele. He's joining us again, as he does every single year, to preview the college football season. Phil, I love having you on, not only because you bring such great information and insight, but also it is a beacon of my favorite time of year, which is football season. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to talk basketball, you got to leave me out of the conversation because I don't follow any sport but college football. But, yeah, I'm so happy that this season college football is going to be back to normal. We're not going to have cancellations. We're not going to have teams or conferences shutting down their season. We're not going to have schedule changes. We're going to have full stadiums. I can't tell you how excited I am.
I am right there with you. I don't blame you for not following any other sports. How would you possibly have any time to follow any sports? Because
that go ahead.
As always, you put out the College Football Bible. It is essential reading for any college football fan, for any college football commentator, anyone in any sort of medium who covers the sport. There is so much information in there that I cannot imagine you have a time to watch even an NBA Finals game.
Yeah, I didn't watch a single play of basketball this year. Didn't watch a single play of baseball, and I tell you what, it does take 365 days to put this thing together. We're already starting to work on next year's magazine right now, going through some of the matchups of the teams that don't play this year but play next year, maybe getting their angles in, and already starting to fine tune some of the stuff we're going to be working on next year.
So, Phil Steele's 2021 college football preview. Get it, pick it up, because it's absolutely vital. Before we get started, I put out to a couple people who are loyal listeners of the show. I was wondering if they had any questions for you, and one of the questions asked, we get so much information from you and insight from you, but we don't know a whole lot about the man behind the magazine. When you were growing up, did you have any favorite teams or any favorite college, whether it's pro or college teams?
Well, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, naturally the Indians, the Browns, the Cavs, I rooted for all those teams growing up. And but now, of course, I don't follow any sport but college football, so that sort of leaves it wide open. And people ask me every year, do you have a favorite team in college football? And I say, yes, I do. And my favorite team every year in college football, or teams, I should say, are the ones that I pick higher than everybody else. So naturally, I root for them. So this year, I'm rooting for the Washington Huskies, the Oklahoma Sooners, and it varies on a year-to-year basis who's my favorite college team.
Now, speaking of Oklahoma, Texas and Oklahoma obviously rocked the college football world when they decided that they were going to leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC. I'm sure you've talked about this ad nauseum, but what does this mean going forward? Especially, out in our neck of the woods, we're big Pac-12 fans. So what does that mean for like the Pac-12 and the rest of the conferences?
Yeah, for years I thought we were going to a 16-team super conference, and it appears we're headed that way. Unless the SEC continues to expand, then that throws all that into the wash. But I think that's probably where we're headed. But I'd be honest with you, I had no clue that Texas and Oklahoma were going to go to the SEC. Neither did the majority of the country, only those folks working on the inner thing. So we're going to have to see how it plays out. But we're going to see a lot of changes in the near future, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's going to be that will be wild if OU and Texas are in the SEC. I have a question. How much, with NIL becoming a part of the equation and recently, is that going to be something? I mean, I think it will affect the college football landscape. How will that affect your ability to grade, grade teams and recruits, given that certain schools might be able to offer more than another school? Do you see that impacting the structure where the haves get richer and the have-nots struggle to keep up because of NIL?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen, is that the rich are going to get richer. The teams with the biggest boosters, pocketbooks, are going to buy the best recruits that they can. And I think that's where we're headed. Naturally, nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen, but it sure appears headed that way. As far as my outlook goes, and what we do for the magazine, I don't think it'll have any impact, because I really don't even study the high school freshmen until they actually sign with the school. I don't worry about commitments, because they can commit to one team and commit to another and commit to another. I don't even follow all that stuff. But once they sign with the team, that's when we break it down and where they fit with each squad.
Let's transition into Utah. Talking about Utah and the Pac-12. There's a lot of confidence coming out of what we call Camp Kyle Whittingham's camp right now. A lot of people are saying all the right things, but when I was kind of breaking it down, it kind of seems like there are some question marks. Let's see here. Let's just start with the big one. What are we going to do at quarterback? We got Charlie Brewer, obviously came in, very, led his team to a great season last year. And we got Cam Rising, kind of the heir apparent that's been in the sidelines for a little bit. Who do you see taking the job?
Well, the good news is I don't think Coach Whittingham can go wrong either way. I went with Brewer as the quarterback. He's got a lot of experience and fit in well. He's a guy that came in and had a great attitude when he came in. And I think if you go back and take a look at what he did in the spring, he was very good. And Cam Rising is a guy that won the job last year and then got injured in the opening game. So I think no matter who they choose, they're going to be in good shape there. And then they could even use a Wildcat quarterback in Jaquindon Jackson. So this is a very good situation to be in for Utah. Even though they don't have a returning starting quarterback per se, I think they got two very capable guys.
Now, obviously, the tragic passing of Ty Jordan it rocked our university. It rocked our fan base. It was very difficult to deal with. And, on a much lesser scale, it leaves us with question marks at running back. There are a ton of running backs, as usual, at Utah. Any of those that stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the two transfers coming in, T.J. Pledger from Oklahoma and Chris Curry from LSU, these are guys that normally wouldn't be at Utah. Utah doesn't get a lot of what I call the big-time VHTs. I mean, T.J. Pledger was my number 4 rated running back out of high school when he signed at Oklahoma. Last year he ran for 451 yards there. And then Chris Curry is a guy that was competing in a deep backfield at LSU the last couple of years and averaged over 5 yards per carry in his limited action. So I think those two guys could really step to the top. And then you take a look at another transfer coming in, and that would be Tavion Thomas, who was my number 29 running back coming out of high school. So, and then how about true freshman Ricky Parks, a guy who's got good size. That's 4 VHT running backs at Utah, right at the top of the depth chart. And once again, no matter who emerges as that top guy, I think they've got good depth and good talent.
You got to like the running back situation anytime you're talking Utah. Typically, they can get it done. It's degrees of excellence. But I think it's important to discuss and help us, if you will. Really, it's the boys up front on both the offense and defense, but specifically on the offensive line, where I think the Utes need to see improved play, even from our short stint last year, to really make a run at the South and possibly the Pac-12 championship. How do we look up front?
Well, the good news here is when I talked to Coach Whittingham, he felt it might be the best offensive line in his tenure. And I checked him on that. I said, Coach, you've had some pretty doggone good offensive lines. He said, yep, this could be the best offensive line he's had in his tenure. So all 5 starters back, all 5 guys are legitimate NFL prospects. This is one of the best offensive lines in the country. So that's going to help not only the run game, but help the quarterback. I rate it the number 5 offensive line in the country. And, of course, I'm a member of the Joe Moore Award Committee. We'll be looking at Utah closely as the season wraps up at the end of the year as to whether or not they can be one of the finalists or even win the Joe Moore Award.
How often do you talk to each individual coach? Like we mentioned, you are a busy man, but to be able to talk to these guys, you must take a lot of time must take you a lot of time to do all that.
Oh yeah, it's part of the third write-through process for the magazine. What I do is I send the coaches my team pages, which have every player on the team, all my notes on every player, all the stats on every player, and I say, okay, coach, put me in the right order. And the phone calls generally take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to go over every player on the team, get strengths and weaknesses, have them put my guys in order. And that's every spring. This year I went over the teams with 110 of the 130 head coaches out there. And Coach Whittingham is always valuable at this time. In fact, I could call him at the end of the year where I'm on every award committee, talk to him about players that he's seen, pick his brain for that, or even players on his own team. So coaches are very receptive to it, and it does take a lot of time. We don't do the third right through of the magazine until the coaches put my team pages in order for me.
You feel like you're getting straight answers out of all of them all the time?
If I was getting coach speak, I generally say, you know what, I don't need to talk to that coach anymore. So there are a couple you're going to get coach speak from. I won't send them out, tell you who they are exactly, but there are a couple that you get the coach speak. Other than that, they are very much, I feel, they're being very legit with me.
We always know as we talk about Utah football that the defense is one thing they can rely on. I was wondering, I thought R.J. Hubert was out due to injury in spring ball, but what do the safety positions look like? I feel like every time Utah's had an elite defense, we're sort of fortunate and expect the defensive line to be what we've become accustomed to. And I think the defensive line will be a strength this year as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm interested in the safety positions and who we can expect to see and what we can expect to see from them.
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, the good news is, the front seven is going to be dynamic as usual, and it doesn't matter what Utah's got on the defensive line. They're always outstanding, as you mentioned, and this is a veteran group they've got up front. Now, when you look at safety, I think you take a look at a guy like Latu. He's got good size. He's a good hitter. And the good thing when I talked to Coach Whittingham about him is he said he has to tone him down in practice. I love that out of a player that's, the type of player you have to tone down rather than motivate. And then Vontae Davis is a kid that's, I think he's a rangy kid. He's athletic. They had in a Washington transfer at safety and Brandon McKinney. Didn't do a lot at Washington, but he's another one of those, what I call VHTs. He was my number 41 rated safety. And I tell you what, if you play for Jimmy Lake in that secondary, you got to be good. Jimmy Lake always produces an outstanding secondary, so I think he comes in with some good potential. And then Cole Bishop is a guy who's more of a throwback football guy, and he was in for the spring. He's a true freshman. I think he's going to do well. And then the nickelback position, got Malone Matile, and he's a guy that I think is going to fit in. He had a nice interception in the spring game, as you recall, and he got in 2 starts at that nickelback spot last year. So it's probably the biggest question mark on the defense because it's the least experienced unit, but I think they're in pretty good shape, especially with what's surrounding them.
Where do you see Utah? What do you see their record being this year?
Very good, and they're on my surprise team list again. You guys remember 2 years ago I had them my number 1 surprise team. They got all the way to the Pac-12 title game. Had they won that game, they would have been in the doggone playoff and made me look really good. Unfortunately, dropped the Pac-12 title game. This year, they're my number 4 surprise team. When you look at the talent they have a top 25 offense and a top 10 defense, so it's going to be very dangerous. I actually have an underdog in just one game all year at USC, and I only have them a 3-point underdog. I've got them favored in all the rest of their games, including a trip to Stanford, including hosting Oregon. I think this may be one of the deepest teams Coach Whittingham has had. Of course, everybody in the country is deep this year because of the rule they had, which everybody got to maintain their eligibility. So it seems like everybody's got 15, 16, 17 returning starters. But this is a very good Utah team, and if they win that game October 9th, you might start thinking playoff if you're a Utah fan.
Well, I got to tell you, when we spoke with you 2 years ago, we figured Utah was going to be good. But then when you said that they were your surprise team, that's what got me excited and actually clued me into this could be a special team. I'm hearing a lot of talk coming out of Camp Kyle that this team is very reminiscent of 2019. So I have to trust the experts, and Phil Steele is none better. Let's transition into BYU. Now, obviously, big shoes need to be filled at that quarterback spot. Again, we're just going to start with the heavy question. Who do you see as QB1 coming out of BYU?
Well, it could really be any of three guys, but I went with Jacob Conover, the freshman. I think, the fact that he ran the scout team last year, and I thought he did well. He's not your typical true freshman. I mean, he's a guy that came out of high school back in 19, so he's got plenty of he's a veteran, you might say, of that, even though he hasn't thrown a pass in a college game. Jaron Hall's a dynamic athlete that could very well win the job, and Baylor Romney's a guy that's done well when called upon. But I went with Conover as the starting quarterback and this year.
Much like the University of Utah, BYU is known for an offensive line that produces pros and protects the quarterback well. What is the offensive line shaking out down there in Provo?
Good this year. And I'll tell you this, I'm on the Joe Moore Award Committee, and Aaron Taylor asked me to come up with a preseason list. He goes, Phil, just give me all the teams that have three or more starters on the offensive line. Like, Aaron, that's pretty much 95% of college football. And he's like, okay, how about four starters back on the offensive line? I go, okay, that's about 80% of college football. Everybody has a veteran offensive line this year, and BYU's no exception. James M.P. Beckett, center, is a captain on the team. And one of the best offensive linemen, I feel, maybe even in the country. Clark Barrington is another guy at the guard spot. They've got Harris LaChance is a big guy. He's 6'3", 310, and he's got probably NFL capability. And then Blake Freeland at left tackle. So they've got a veteran line. They've got plenty of guys that they'll find their way into the NFL, and it's going to be your typical BYU offensive line this year.
Coming off a year last year that was obviously needed for the program, but also awesome for the fan base, the schedule is a lot different this year, and it's ramping up, maybe not to last year's standards, but to a standard that wasn't even approached last year. I mean, you have quite a few Pac-12 teams. Throw Baylor into the mix, as well as Boise State. And what are realistic expectations replacing, the number 2, I think, draft pick and Zach Wilson? Offensive line is still good. We're not sure about the defense, although they'll probably be fairly solid with Kalani Sitake as the head coach. Is the schedule going to impact what the expectation level should be for you for BYU?
Well, I don't think BYU is going to be undefeated with 2 games left in the season, or 1 game left in the season, then schedule a game 2 days out, travel to the East Coast, and loses by a foot to Coastal Carolina. But let me share the conversation I had with Coach Sitake last year. After going through the entire team with him, I said, Coach, this is your best team by far. And I've gone through the team with him each year since he's been there. And then just as I was hanging up, he goes, Phil, we don't play the schedule we used to play here. And I thought about that. And then what happened? They ended up playing the schedule they used to play there, and it looked like the glory days for BYU as they just blew teams out on a weekly basis and really probably should have been undefeated at the end of the year had they not taken that Coastal game and come up a couple of feet short. Now, when I talked to Coach Sitake this year, I told him I had major questions about that defensive line, and he said he didn't have questions on the defensive line. I don't think this team is as good as last year's, but I do think that they are a very good team, and Coach Sitake's done a good job building it. when I look at their schedule this year, guys, they pull the top 3 teams out of the Pac-12 South. I'm talking about USC, Utah, and Arizona State. They do get Utah and Arizona State at home, have to play USC on the road. They'll probably be an underdog in all 3 of those games this year. They also have to play Baylor on the road. That one could be pretty tricky. Baylor's going to be a vastly improved team this year under Dave Aranda, who is a first-year head coach. They have to play Washington State on the road. But I think it's a team very capable of an 8 or 9 win season this year. So I think they're going to have a very good year by BYU standards of the past. They're just not going to be 10-0 with and ranked number 8 in the country with 1 game to go.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned the schedule because I was going to ask you if they do a disservice to themselves by scheduling so tough so often these years. Because last year, as you saw, just by necessity, they were playing teams that were, far lower than them in the skill level, and they ended up having a great season. A lot of national respect, second pick in the draft. So is it better to schedule hard and maybe have like an 8-win season, or is it better to schedule cupcakes and potentially go undefeated?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, and I think if BYU has is trying to get into being in a Power 5 conference, they probably have to keep the tougher schedule like they have, which really helps, I think, in a transition to the Power 5. But I don't know. I mean, it sure felt real good last year if you're a BYU fan. At the end of the year, it felt like it was back to normalcy.
Well, and I got to tell you, as a Utah fan, it was just tough seeing them play, because it kept coming, and then the game would be canceled, and then next week, and then that game would be canceled. So it was a long wait. But before we move off BYU, got to ask you, who's going to win the rivalry game between Utah and BYU?
Well, Utah's won so many of them in a row. I got to stick with the Utes winning that one, even though it's on the road at BYU.
My man, I like it. All right, let's move on to the Aggies. Utah State. Honestly, Phil, I don't even know where to begin with them because last year was such a disappointment. They lost Jason Shelley. I don't even know where to go. It seems like Blake Anderson has made the defense kind of a priority, but what is the one position or the one area you think that they need to improve the most?
Well, I think the one area that will be improved the most is the quarterback spot. Last year, they struggled to throw the football. This year they bring in Logan Bonner, who knows the offense extremely well. He played in it at Arkansas State with Coach Anderson. They add in a guy like Justin Rice at linebacker. I think Justin Rice, if you remember him from Fresno, and he did great at Arkansas State last year. They've got some dangerous receivers with Devin Tompkins and Savon Scarver. So I think the passing game is going to be vastly improved for Utah State this year. And the defense is going to be better as well. So I think it's just a situation where last year, interim head coach, rather inexperienced team last year, only 11 returning starters had to replace their quarterback and never really found that quarterback as the season went on. I do expect a much improved team.
Give us a little background. I know I'm excited from what I've seen from Coach Blake Anderson while he's been up in Logan. We know the success and some of the ordeals with his wife passing they had overcome at Arkansas State. But is he the person to sort of rejuvenate the program like Gary Anderson did 12 years ago? It seems like he's the man for the job.
Yeah, I think so. When you take a look at the situation he stepped in at Arkansas State, when he took over the job there, I think he was the 6th head coach in 6 years. I mean, it seemed like 1 year head coach leave, 1 year head coach leave. That's a tough situation. That's especially now it would be extremely tough with the transfer portal. But he did a great job getting that program turned around and on a high level for a long period of time. Last year they just went through a lot of tough things, as you mentioned, with his wife passing away like that. And I think he just needed a change, and he's got the change here. So I think he could take Utah State and make it like Arkansas State was in the Sun Belt.
New offensive coordinator in Anthony Tucker. He wants to go fast. Do they have the personnel to do that? Because based on what I saw last year, I'm not sure they do.
Yeah, getting Logan Bonner, he knows the offense well. That's going to be a big plus there. And I think they've got the talent at running back. They've got the talent at receiver. And the offensive line, guess what? It's a veteran group, like all the other offensive lines this year. So I do think they have the talent to upgrade.
Well, that is good news for Aggies fans. And I got to ask you about the other rivalry game. Who do you think is going to pull off the victory in Utah State and BYU?
I'm going to go with BYU there. I think Utah State will be improved, but I still think BYU's at a different level at this point.
And in Vegas, I know you don't do lines. I mean, they have them at 3 wins. It's almost. I mean, I'm not a gambling man, but I would take the over on that. They're gonna win more than 3 games, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, when you look at their schedule, the games I rate as toss-ups on their schedule would be Colorado State at home, Hawaii at home, and at New Mexico. I would have them favored at New Mexico State and at UNLV. So, and if it's 3, that means if they get to 3 wins, it's a push. You don't lose your money. That's the way I would go. I would go with the over on 3.
Yeah, I think so. Before we let you go, we got to get your pick for the playoff and for the national champion.
Well, I'm going way out on the line here with the playoff picks, guys. I'm going with Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma. So how's that for being a risk taker? But I think if you are looking for a big risk, I picked Oklahoma to win the first national title since 2000. And the reason for that is that, number one, the last 3 times they've made the playoff in the 4 years of Lincoln Riley, they've had a veteran quarterback. They've had the best offense in the country. But when you get to the playoff, they're giving up 40, 50, 60 points in those 3 games. This year, they actually have a top 5 defense. Last year, they only allowed 21 points per game. They have 9 starters back on defense. I think they have a number 3 D-line, number 9 linebackers, number 3 DBs. They have a legitimate top 5 defense to go along with the best offense in the country. Spencer Rattler, my number 1 rated offensive line, number 2 set of receivers, number 4 set of running backs. And then you'll take a look at last year's 4 playoff teams. I mentioned everybody in college football has 15-plus returning starters, like Oklahoma, which has 15. But the 4 teams that made the playoff last year all have 9, 10, or 11 returning starters, and they all lose their starting quarterback. So you have a vastly improved team for Oklahoma against playoff contention that's among the few inexperienced teams in the country. So I've got Oklahoma winning it all.
I like that pick. That makes me happy. I enjoy hearing that one. James, before we give all the plugs and thank Phil, anything else you got on your plate?
No, he answered a lot of questions. We appreciate you coming on, Mr. Steele.
Sure, I appreciate that. The magazine is available at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million this year exclusively. So head out to your local Barnes & Noble, your local Books A Million, grab one up. Now, they sell out real quick, so I would recommend getting out there right now because it usually takes them about a week to restock after they sell out, and they've sold out twice this year already. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. But if you don't find it there, you can go online to philsteele.com. That's STEELE.com. And when you go to philsteele.com, you can actually order both the hard copy of the magazine and then get the digital at $10 off. And the digital magazine this year, guys, we will be updating with all the changes that happened in the month of August. So even stuff that's not in the magazine, we'll have players circled that are injured now for the year, players circled that transferred away. We'll add in players that transferred in, and that'll all be updated up until the start of the season. So it's a really good deal, and you get $10 off when you get both at the same time. You could just go to Phil Steele, STEELE.com. And finally, don't forget to follow me on Twitter. It's at PhilSteele042. That's at PhilSteele042.
And like always, every year you're on, we always put all the links in the show notes of this episode. So head over to doganddeuce.com if you missed any of that, and we will definitely have links to everything there. Phil, like I said, it's always so much fun having you on. You drop so much knowledge, and you get me super excited for college football. So thank you for joining us once again.
Hey, always a lot of fun talking football with you guys. Really enjoyed it again today. And have a great summer.
Doesn't watch any other sports. I'm not surprised, though.
I mean, how could you? Like you said, the commitment to the cause of informing the masses about how good or bad your team will be is next level. You know, I mean, 365 days a year, this man's wondering, you know, whether Bowling Green is going to be good or not. Right. You know, I mean, think about the number of teams that he has to go through, and you know, it's remarkable. Every time I stutter like this because I can't even imagine. There's no words.
Because it's not just P5 schools. It's not just Division I schools. He's got a whole other separate magazine for the Division II schools. It's crazy. And the thing that surprised me, I mean, it didn't surprise me because I know him and we've been talking to him forever and I've listened to a million interviews with him. But it's still shocking to me that anyone can say, hey, I had this conversation with Kalani Sitake 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, like, what? Yeah. How can you, like, you talk to so many coaches every year, and you talk to him multiple times a year. How can you remember one offhanded comment he made years ago? Like, it's nuts. The dude is on fire.
I mean, the best of the best. We're always grateful when he comes on. And I mean, the beauty of having Mr. Steele on for me is it's just the primer that gets me motivated to super go in depth on all three of our local teams. Right. And even kind of, he drops so much information so quick, it starts to just ping my brain and send out more interesting desires to get knowledge of the Utes, the Cougars, and the Aggies. And I mean, let's be honest, if you're a Ute, a Cougar, or even an Aggie, he thinks you're going to have at least with the Utes and Cougars, a pretty good to really good year. And the Aggies are going to exceed at least the Las Vegas expectations.
Yeah, and I think they will too. I mean, they have to.
Absolutely. I would, if I were a gambling man, I would go down and put money on 4 wins, honestly.
Wendover's 2 hours away, man.
I don't even know if that line still stands. Every time I hear that, I'm like, why don't I gamble more?
Wendover's 2 hours away. It's a quick jaunt.
I know.
Get out there, make that bet, man. Yeah, it's cool having him on. Let's see here. We were going to do this as a quick cast or a quick takes, but James is he's so amped to give me the business over my Australia Boomers losing to the USA in the semifinals of the Olympics. So go ahead, let's hear it. Get it over with.
Real quick. What was the one thing you were surprised about from each of the college football discussions we had? Because, and I'll just run it out. Like for me with the Utes, we're obviously still looking for some clarity in the back end of the defense, right? And he wasn't really worried at all by the running backs. I'm interested to see what Micah Bernard, TJ Pledger, and crew can do. For me, for BYU, it was shocking to hear that Conover he thought would be the starter. I don't know. Maybe I haven't been following camp enough for BYU. I sort of get the vibe that it's Jaron Hall. So that was an interesting one, and that he was worried about the defensive line. And with the Aggies, I was excited that, they brought the transfer in from Arkansas State and up in Logan, we might be able to see some fireworks on the offensive side of the ball. But those were kind of my takeaways from that interview of what I maybe wasn't unsure of or wasn't aware of even possibly.
Well, the one thing I want to, we have to kind of zip through all the schools and get to everything we can. But one thing I really wish that I had written down that I didn't get a chance to ask him was about the receivers up at Utah, because it's an inexperienced group. But by all accounts, the quarterback, not issues, but the quarterback is, no matter who plays, should be fine and great and be able to lead the team. But are the receivers going to hinder that? That's my question. So I wish I
would have been a good one. I missed on the Nakua brothers. Like, I'll be interesting to see. I mean, one from Oregon, one from Utah, pretty elite programs, and Bushman coming back. I'll be interested to see how that offense holds up.
Puka came from Washington.
Oh, why?
Dude, you do this every time.
I do every time.
You have
Oregon,
some block.
Washington.
Yeah.
I don't like either of them.
I know.
So it's just frustrating.
I know. Yeah.
Just they're grouped in.
And BYU, I was really surprised to hear, because I read some interviews with some coaches up at BYU. I was surprised to hear that Kalani Sitake said he's not worried about the defensive line, because I am. And
when you lose Kairos Tonga,
dude.
I'm so excited that he's on the Bears. You have no idea.
There was a quote, and I forget who it is. I don't think it was from a coordinator, but I think it was from one of the position coaches saying, the thing that keeps me up at night that I lose sleep over is our defensive line and the holes at safety. So to me, I was surprised about that. And then the Aggies, I was actually, just based on what I saw last season, I was a little surprised that he was as high on them as he is. I mean, he's not saying that they're going to win the Mountain West or even win the division, but I'm a little surprised. He kind of convinced me, though. So now I'm with you now, and I'm thinking, 3 wins. I think they could do that. But before going into that, look, I wasn't.
Yeah, I hear you. And that tidbit he had on Coach Blake Anderson, I have to always, because Anderson's a part of that program's history. The current coach, Blake Anderson, about how they had 6 different coaches in 6 years before he arrived at Arkansas State and what he did. I mean, that matters. Yeah. Like that little morsel of knowledge that I was unaware of, that matters in a person's ability, a head coach's ability to turn around a program. I mean, Arkansas State was legit.
Absolutely.
people did not want to go play them. I think they beat Auburn one year. Is that right? And they had
probably it sounds right.
Yeah. So I mean, what he did with that program, I for me, the expectations are not this year, but in the coming years for Aggies to sort of have that run that we became accustomed to in the next 4 to 5 years and hope for up there in Logan.
All right. Do you wanna get it out of your system?
It's hey man, do you have anything you want to get out of your system?
No, I don't. Like, look, man, I was rooting for Joe Ingles, and they lost, and the USA won. So I don't. What else is there to say? It's not like I'm bummed. It's not like
I had a homework assignment that I was looking for why you support anti-feminist movements in women's basketball.
I have no
that report yet.
What are you talking about?
You have that report yet?
I don't have the report. But
okay.
You might.
Common.
Why don't
all
you
the reports you ever tell me are going to show up on my desk first thing in the morning never show up?
Why don't you fill everybody in on what this report is?
Well, I was just wondering. I mean, I was sort of trying to poke the bear.
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting, and it was sort of awkward for me. I don't know if you saw the. And look, I need to be clear. If they voted on this and this is how they prefer to play, I'm all for it. So don't. It was just more of me giving Alan a little hard time. I'd never honestly seen a women's basketball team wear spandex as their shorts.
It's weird.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm looking at pictures right now. It's very weird.
Okay, but had you seen that before that?
No.
And I don't watch any Australian women's basketball in the Olympics, so I apologize. It just caught me off guard. And so I wanted a report if it was team voted, mandated by the Australian Basketball Federation or something.
I can't imagine that Australia basketball is just like, all right, the women have to wear spandex. You know,
You would think that, but ask the Norwegian women's sand handball.
Yeah, but that's
team.
going the other way. That's going the other way where they were trying to get away from wearing revealing stuff. I can't imagine a country or an organization's like, you must. Like, we're going to switch the regulations so you have to wear something revealing.
Well, that's what they did. I mean, the regulations are revealing in that context, but nonetheless. And then my second question is, and I was just thinking about this today, would your decision to root for Joe Ingles, and I ask this to all people who follow me and Jazz fans, because most people are like this, if Ben Simmons was on the Australian national team, would you still be able to root for them over USA?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, so you've spared yourself a little there.
That's
Thank
why
God. And unfortunately, the person I have to blame for all this is Ben Simmons.
Yes.
Just adding to my...
Just add to it. Add to all the garbage that he's done that we can be mad at him about.
I really wish he would have played. It would have eliminated some heartache in my life. And, you know...
It kind of proves my point, though, man. Like, how can
Maybe the hemorrhoid would still be friends. So blame Ben Simmons. That's my life motto.
But thirdly, wait, hold on. How can I possibly... Like, you just like, it nailed it exactly. How can I root for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker? They're like, I can't stand either of those guys. No, just because we were born within a pretend boundary that was made up by human beings, like then I have to root for them. No, I'm going to root for players that I like.
I just want to point out the only other person who I see rooting against our teams, was talking heat on the women's soccer team today. Well, I don't know if that's the
well,
group.
Then you're not looking hard enough, because there were a ton on Twitter that are rooting against the USA basketball team. A ton.
I mean, we're rooting against Patty Mills blowing us up in 2014.
It's hard to root against Patty Mills. Like, Patty Mills is a likable guy. It's hard.
I like them. You're confusing the situation. I like a lot of people. I like Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
I like Ricky Rubio. That doesn't mean I root for them. Like, now the beauty of this is, guess what? Now I'm excited because all three Jazz players have a chance to medal. And if you ask me, am I rooting for Joe Ingles versus Slovenia? Yeah, I hope he drops a 40-point and Australia gets their first medal in basketball.
That's unpatriotic.
Yeah, but not at the expense of the United States basketball program, period.
Unpatriotic. You're not a patriot. You can't root for any other team at all to get any medal.
You can.
Just kidding, man.
You can do whatever you want.
That is just as absurd.
The funny part is if you're so solid in it, don't get defensive. You have a right to, but I have a right to say I don't understand it. I think we can agree upon that.
I actually clipped our little segment in the last show, and I put it on YouTube. So if you want to hear just our original discussion about this, spurned by Nate the Hemorrhoid's voicemail, then go check it out, youtube.com/DD on sports. But dude, like, I didn't really get a chance to explain that it is so much fun to see you guys get so worked up over me not rooting for the USA. Like that is
a troll.
More than anything, that's what made me double down. Because before I'm like, I don't really care. I like Joe Ingles. I like him more than I like the USA players. So I'm gonna kind of root for him, but I don't really care in the end.
You like him more than you like Dame Lillard?
Yeah. Because I have more of a perceived connection with Joe Ingles because I've watched him far more than Dame Lillard. I like Damian Lillard. I like him a lot, but I like Joe Ingles more. But when you guys started getting so upset about it, it became so much fun to me to just double down and dig in and just really lean into the hyperbole. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, I'm glad you're a troll. Like I said, there's only one person I know who's talking heat on the women's national
you're not
team
looking
for winning
then.
Bronze. I don't want to be in that group.
You're not
you
looking.
You may call yourself a troll. You may call yourself blah, 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 whatever. It's dead too. But here's the thing.
There's not only one person.
You have a right. There is. You have now, I have determined personally, we'll see. Your love of Australia means I'm using your Twitter account as my Google for anything that I have about Australia.
You're going to be
the Olympics and maybe the Paralympics.
You're going to be severely disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. So that's the kind of person you are. Your love is just fleeting. You don't need, you're a troll, John.
I'm
man.
not an Australian Boomers fan. I'm not an Australian Boomers fan. I'm a Joe Ingles fan. I like Joe, and I would like to see him succeed. I don't care. It's not a big deal. Like it wouldn't break my heart if the USA loses. If the Jazz got to the NBA Finals and lost, that would break my heart far more than if the USA gets to the gold medal round and loses. Like, I don't care that much. I would like to see the USA win. It doesn't affect me that much one way or the other. I want to see exciting basketball. Like the end of that France.
I need to be clear. I don't wake up and cry when they lost.
I don't know, man. You're kind of you're a little. I don't know. You're very enthusiastic. I'll just say.
Well, yeah, dude. It's the Olympics. What is the Olympics about? Sportsmanship and rooting for your country.
Here's the thing. If you look at Spain,
the USA men's soccer team was playing, like, I'm trying to think. Oh, that's right. You love David Beckham. That's right.
No.
You're a David Beckham lover as well.
No.
Yeah, that and Posh Spice. That's your crew. Would you?
What are you talking about, man?
I don't know.
But if
you probably would, it'd be a good troll.
Here's the thing. It's the reason I think why it's harder for me to find a connection with the USA basketball team is the personnel changes every single time, every single tournament, everything. With the Jazz, we spend 82 games with this team every year, and then some playoff games, God willing. So we get to know the personalities. We get to know them. If USA basketball, like you look at Spain, even though they only come together for certain tournaments, including the Olympics, that core has been there for a very long time. Ricky Rubio's played in like 5 Olympics or something like that, something ridiculous.
Yeah,
Pau Gasol and his brother had played in a ton of Olympics. So, like, I think the people of Spain get to see that, and they get to really kind of develop that love for that core group of people. I don't care. A couple years ago, it was LeBron James, and then Carmelo Anthony, and like I don't care. It's not enough for me to. I know more about these guys in the context of the NBA than I do in international basketball, and so that's where the perceptions were formed in the NBA. And now you're expecting me, they play for a team that I'm supposed to like because of patriotism. Now I have to like those players.
It's not even patriotism. Like, you use a lot of these words that I don't like to use, like fascist and patriotism. I don't.
You guys are
If you notice,
you revoked my citizenship.
One of those words. I just want to be clear.
Wait, hold on.
Who's accusing me of something? I haven't accused you of anything other than trying to find your rationale. That's the best way you've explained it. It's still faulty.
You and Nate.
I mean, you don't like Greg Popovich? You
don't
want
fine.
Pop to get
He's fine.
Well,
you and Nate.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's Greg Popovich, man. You don't like Drew Holiday?
He's
fine. You don't think his story is awesome?
Yeah, it's fine.
Amazing.
I don't dislike him. It's fine.
You don't like him? Wow.
No. I said
to make sure his wife recovered from a brain tumor.
That's not what I said. I said I don't dislike him.
That dude, I just want to tell you, like,
what I'm supposed to like every single person that puts on the jersey
to say, like, well, I don't dislike him. It's getting very reminiscent of what I've been experiencing for 2 years.
So I'm supposed to just automatically love a player because he puts on a jersey from the country I live in? No,
It's not about.
But here's the thing.
That's the point you're missing. It's literally not about any of the players. It's literally has nothing.
I hear you. But then why?
That's where I
wait. Hold on. Then why were you asking me if you don't like this guy? You don't like this guy? If it's not about the players, then you shouldn't be doing that. You're the one
who said you don't like it because of KD.
But here's the thing.
I love the way he's playing and caring about it as the Europeans do or as the Australians do. Devin Booker is playing and caring about it. That's good.
Good for him.
To me, we complain about how NBA players load management, don't do this and do that. It is exciting for me to see these players that you don't like actually care about something. That's exciting. And that, to me, I draw significance from that in the sense that, maybe America can be all right. Because all these players don't like each other either. That's the beauty of it, is that no one likes them. They probably don't like each other. I'm sure. I only wish like LeBron were on the team. So KD and LeBron, Draymond and KD wasn't exactly a perfect ending in Golden State, but it's about the bigger cause. That's why I like it.
Yeah. That's part of the thing is like, it's not a cause. It's a game, So for me, I understand that
it could be a cause if they get on.
Hold on. It's a medal, it's a, who cares? And while I agree with you, I do like that Devin Booker cares. I do like that KD cares. I like that those guys care enough to actually take their summer to go do that, because we have criticized players who refuse to do that. I do like that. Doesn't mean that it totally redeems them from how much I despise them during the NBA season. And I want to go back to one thing you said earlier, where I'm throwing out words. You and Nate revoked my citizenship because I disagree with you on an issue.
I didn't revoke.
That is the definition of fascism. I rest my case.
I did not revoke your citizenship.
I rest my case.
Hemorrhoid.
Well, I didn't.
But I will point out
I didn't see you. I didn't see you.
Let me help you with semantics. The cause I'm discussing is the team winning a game, not like some other cause. But I would also tell you that I haven't anticipated. If there's any one team, protests have not been allowed at the Tokyo Games. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. If there's any one team that could protest and get away with it, it's the United States men's basketball team.
It's true.
So the cause may not be over. And I got to be honest, if they don't do it on the podium, I expect them to continue the dialogue of what's going on in the world. So the cause may not be quite over, but I was talking about the cause of winning the gold medal, not like some political cause.
Right. Well, and they I hope they do that. I will earn a lot of respect. They will earn a lot of respect from me for all of them if they do that. So that's good. But
I hope this
I'm just
saying, Joe Ingles on our show.
Dude, you did not.
That's the only positive I could see come from it. I hope you're tagging him in all these clips. But then he's going to be like, what? This bloke's rooting against his country? I can't be coming on that show.
Nah. I will say you didn't stand up and you didn't stand up for me when my citizenship was revoked. I'll just say you stood by and said nothing. You stood by and said nothing.
Here we go again. Here we go. I mean, the thing is, I find it funny. You've revoked my Jazz fandom. I mean, you revoked my fandom like it's nothing. So I'm not, like I kind of feel like you walked into that one, and turnabout is fair play.
Look,
so
man.
That's why and you should feel lucky. Nate normally supports when you revoke my fandom.
That's true. Listen.
And I didn't. I just stood quietly in the corner.
There are some things you don't joke about, and a man's citizenship is one of them. Yeah, anyway, it's good for you. Congratulations, USA. Gold medal game. Although do you notice how I'm laughing? You feel a lot more like angry about it. No. I'm not meaning to. I'm trying to joke around and have fun with it. No, not at all.
I think it's crazy that one single individual, Joe Ingles, who you've never met, has he bought you a cup of chai yet?
No, not yet. He's in Tokyo, man. He's busy.
I worry, though, also we're kind of getting to the creepy phrase if he ever does do this, where it's like he's going to be looking over his shoulder at every coffee shop looking for you to be sitting there like, hey, Joe, I supported you in Australia. Like, I don't know. It could get creepy.
That ending of that Slovenia-France game, epic. And I will say, for everyone who likes to talk trash about Rudy Gobert, notice who did not take the shot? Luka. Why didn't he take the shot? Because he's being guarded by Rudy Gobert, which allowed for Nick Batum to go by and make a huge game-saving block that would have been a layup. So epic ending.
Rudy Gobert has played excellent in the Olympics. And look, for me, for a scenario, it's lined up perfectly. USA wins gold, Rudy wins silver, and Joe wins bronze. That will make for a happy Olympics for me.
Well,
like I said, I now that he's not playing USA, I'm rooting for Joe to go drop a 40. Like, let's do it. I don't care either who wins between Slovenia and Australia, but I'm definitely going to be pulling for the Boomers. So now I'm on your squad. I hope you watch that and cheer with the same fervor you did when they played America, although I don't know that you will.
Welcome. I will. I'll be very happy if Joe wins a medal.
Will you stay up past bedtime to watch it in live? I mean, is that your commitment? Can we get a commitment?
No, absolutely not. Dude, I go to bed at 10 when I can.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that before show.
I know.
Your commitment to the Boomers is questionable now.
Do you remember when we used to record at like 10 at night?
Oh, yeah.
It was awful.
It
was fine then. I was young, but now I'm in my 40s. I can't do it anymore. Okay, man. I mean, I think we did it. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else?
80147 Sport.
80147 Sport.
Send in your Twitter handles. Give Alan a hard time for his love of green and gold. I do have to admit, Dante Exum's shoes are pretty sick.
Are they?
I thought they.
I'm going to have to watch the replay today. But I will say, a lot of people are saying bring back Exum.
Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting dynamic if you can get him for cheap. He looked pretty good.
Here's the thing I would not like about having Exum back. It's not, I like Dante Exum. I want him to win a medal too. Like, that's great. I want him to win silver. I don't want him to come back just for the sheer fact is I don't want to have to deal with the Dante Exum number one fanboys that are everywhere that somehow thought he was going to, out of nowhere, become the second coming of Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, that was a little annoying.
Don't you think that will taper off a little given his path?
No, because it didn't. Every year he would get hurt and he wouldn't play very well and he'd fall down. And every year it's like, well, next year he's going to be great. Next year, and it never dawned on them that maybe he's not going to be what we want him to be.
Well, and in that game, don't kid yourself. He was hitting the floor plenty. That's not been eliminated out of his game plan. But and he played well. I mean, I want to give him props. He's playing for an NBA contract. And if it isn't somewhere with the Jazz, I hope he signs. And because he's an NBA caliber player and he's looking good coming off serious injuries. But yeah, him falling to the floor is still definitely a thing.
It's a thing. It'll always be a thing. It's kind of what he does. I will say, when I was prepping for the interview with Phil Steele today, it got me really excited for college football. I've been so distracted by the Jazz season and then the playoff run and then the free agency. And it was the first time that I really started to get those butterflies in my stomach. Like, I'm really, really pumped because, I mean, God willing, we're going to have a normal season. Phil seems to think that it's going to happen and no cancellations and all that. I hope he's right. I really do. I'm not as confident, but we will see.
Exactly. Like, I wish I was as confident in his optimism as he is. And I appreciate that. Those are the people I need. Because right now I'm not seeing that. So I need people like that to point out, like, it is possible, it is doable, it will happen. My brain tells me to be extremely cautiously optimistic, but I'm praying for it. Let's put it that way.
God, I hope so, man. That would be amazing. We're going to be transitioning into football season, which is our busy season. It gets crazy during football season. So we're looking forward to that. We're working on some guests that are going to be really good, really insightful. And we're also going to give our preview. Like, we'll do our rundown of, like we do every year, of what we expect each team to do. We got some great insight today from Phil about, what the teams are capable of and what they're lacking. So we'll get into that. But in the meantime, we want to hear what everyone else is thinking. Like, how excited are you for football? Or are you still stoked or sucked into the Jazz free agency? We didn't even talk about last, because as soon as we stopped recording, essentially, like a couple hours later, the news dropped that Hassan Whiteside had been signed by the Jazz. So James isn't too thrilled with that. I am pretty stoked about it.
And Pascal over on the trade.
That's true. And Pascal over on the trade, Donovan's best friend. I don't know if you heard that. Did you know that? I don't know if you heard that he and Donovan are best friends. It's a little reported story.
Dude, you have come up with the thing that no one has said yet.
How is no one talking about this? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it's not like Eric in his own right plays basketball and is pretty good and has been pretty good his whole life.
Right.
But
yeah. The crazy thing to me is we got him for a second round pick.
Great move by the Jazz. Look, Hassan Whiteside, I see him as a possible trade asset later. I hope he contributes, and I hope he's awesome, because there are times where he can be very valuable in the pick and roll game and on the defensive side. I mean, but I just don't know. First of all, he's played a year in Sacramento. What damage has been done?
That's a good point.
And secondly,
that's a very good point.
You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes I feel like it's an effort issue for him. Like he's not giving it, which I don't know how that will run. One other question I wanted to ask you, and I'm hoping you know the answer. I was sort of shocked. First of all, Quinn Snyder, props, wearing flip-flops, my dude. We see that picture. I mean, I'm sort of shocked, and I don't know how the coaching selection process went, but given his connection to, the Spurs and other teams, Atlanta, and his sort of connection to Popovich, I'm sort of surprised he wasn't part of the coaching staff for Team USA.
That's a good point.
It didn't dawn on me until I saw that picture last night. I'm like, dang.
Good point.
Quinn should be that dude.
Well, what would have happened if the Spurs had gone to the finals? Because
Steve Kerr would have took over, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because that's who they have determined is the next guy in waiting based on typical years, right? But I mean, how can Quinn not be a part of that staff? I love and respect Jay Wright and what he's done at Villanova, but
it's a good question.
Dude, Quinn Snyder's been smoking the NBA for 3 years.
Well, not if you listen to the Jazz fan base after they got booted by the Clippers. Good God, man. Good God, the Fire Quinn crew is more obnoxious than the Exum Island crew.
What about the Team USA versus Australia crew? Where do we fit in on that one?
Oh, the Australia crew, best, man. There's no one better on the internet.
No, I mean the Fire Quinn crew is crazy. They're the craziest, you say. Are they crazier than the USA v Australia matchup?
What do you mean? You mean us Australia boosters?
Yeah, the people who find it crazy.
No.
Are they crazier than the hemorrhoid?
It's hard to be crazier than the hemorrhoid. When you two team up, you are a force to be reckoned with. I will tell you that. I do not enjoy being in the crossfires of that storm at all.
Just remember, I expect answers. You're my new go-to for Australian information. I mean, it could be climbing, and I'm going to want to know some knowledge. So I'm going to be like,
keep waiting.
Tell me a little more about this Team Australia climber who's in contention for gold.
Keep waiting. We'll see how that works out for you.
Luckily, you're out of the pool.
Yeah. All right.
No more swimming, so you're good.
No more swimming. That's good. All right, that's going to do it. Episode 376 of Dog and Deuce is in the can. We want to thank again Phil Steele. Head over to our YouTube page, youtube.com/DDonSports. Subscribe. That's been, building this podcast, we've done it over 10 years. It's a lot easier than trying to build a YouTube channel. It's so weird. I was led to believe that people like watching podcasts on YouTube, but apparently that's not the case. So maybe it's just the wrong demographic. I don't know. Do we keep doing it or not? Go subscribe and let us know. And as always, head over to dogandeuce.com for all the links for Phil Steele and the magazine. And send us an email to dogandeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
I'm Deuce.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your day. Football's
France.
around the corner. Woo, woo, woo.